What's up, everybody? TJ here. Real quick before we get started with the episode, I'm testing out a new feature called Fan Mail, which is where you can actually text me from the episode that you're listening to. So as you're listening to this, go over to the episode description, and right there at the beginning, you're going to see some text that says, send me a text message. Go ahead, click that. Let me know what you think about the podcast so far. Let me know of any questions, concerns, anything you might have. I love to hear from you. So go ahead, hit that up. I'm excited to read your text, and let's get started with the episode.
The military, the fire service, all of those things. If you just buy in, if you just buy into the program, you're good. It's fine. It's easy. But that's hard for people to do in this day and age of individualism, and I'm the most important person in my life, and what I say and think matters. We're not doing that today. Just sit down, stand up, yes ma'am, no ma'am, and show up in the right clothes, and you're fine.
Welcome to the Keep the Promise podcast, where we help build resilient and well-rounded firefighters.
Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Keep the Promise podcast. Today, I have the honor of interviewing somebody who's been part of my circle of friends, and even though she's been part of that circle for a long time, we only recently met and talked in person. And once I started digging into her story, listen, social media, you put everything out there. Once I started digging into her story, I realized, oh my God, I have to get her on the podcast, because between multiple stints in different fire departments, military service, a couple humanitarian missions thrown here and there, and just life in general, she has anecdotes and stories and insights that will for sure resonate, and I'm sure will help a few of you. Without further ado, Katy Garroway.
Hi.
It's a pleasure having you.
Thanks for coming out.
I know you were very ecstatic about this interview.
So comfortable.
Everyone who's like, hey, I don't have an interesting story, ends up being some of the best stories. So you have big shoes to fill.
That doesn't help, sir.
You're on the same level as Dave Angelo from a couple episodes ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm up to the task.
I believe that 100%. Well, thanks for doing this today.
Sure. Thanks for coming over, driving up.
Yeah. 70 was a mess. 29, not so much. And then 100, shocking no one, also a mess. So let's just start at the beginning. Tell me about...
It was a cold day.
Was it?
In January, during the Carter administration.
Oddly specific. How often have you rehearsed that line?
Not. When people ask me how old I am, I'm like, well, I was born at the end of the Carter administration, so you figure it out.
Yeah, that's asking people to remember American history, and that's
tall order. It's twofold. You want something from me, you got to give me a little something.
This is true. All right, we don't have to get into numbers. So, cold day, January, Carter administration.
No. How far? Guide me here.
Where'd you grow up?
I'm actually from Maryland.
Okay.
I was born in New Jersey, but moved to Aberdeen when I was 1. Lived there through my 21st year of life when I joined the Marine Corps.
Military brat?
Yes. My father was in the Navy for 38 years. Well, he was in the military for 38 years. He was in the Army during Vietnam, went to the Naval Academy, became a naval officer, and retired at the ripe old age of who knows what. But he did 38 years of service. He's got a glory wall and a fruit salad, which, if you don't know what that is, it's all the pretty pins on your uniform that would put peoples to shame. Ironically enough, I grew up thinking I would never join the military. Not in a million years. But that very quickly changed.
Very quickly. That was pretty much right after 9/11 that you went to the Marine Corps, right?
I signed my letter of intent September 12th, 2001. So directly after. I get asked fairly often if 9/11 was the main catalyst. And I would say yes. It was mainly that. It was I was a shitty kid. I had just gotten out of being in jail and was not going down the best path. And I'll save you all the time going on case search. It was for assault that was dropped. Never came to charges, but so it had already been in the back of my mind earlier that week, like, hey, buddy, what are we doing here? And then 9/11 happened, and when I told my parents, my mother could not get me in the car to get me to the recruiter to sign me fast enough.
No kidding.
She looked at my father and said, take her now.
Isn't it normally the opposite? Like, isn't it normally the parents are like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
This is how wonderful I was as a child.
Oh, man.
Not even a child, because I mean, at that point I was 21. But
yeah, you were.
Still. No, it was a best decision I've ever made in my life, though. I don't know where I would be, as stereotypical as that sounds. I don't know where I would be if I hadn't. I honestly don't.
Did you ever have that judge that was like, hey, go into the military, go to jail type thing?
No, it wasn't so much that, because like I said, that specific charge got dropped. It never even came to like a court date. It was a me thing. I was sitting on a couch, like, fucking, what are you doing, buddy? You're an adult, supposedly. You can't work at the Cheesecake Factory and get arrested for the rest of your life. So, I
mean, some days at work, I feel that would be a good goal to have instead of having to wake up 4 or 5 times a night.
Yeah, and honestly, had it not been for 9/11 or not been for something that made the decision so easy to make quickly, because I am a person of rash decisions. I make them quickly because if I sit and look at the menu for too long, I'll change my mind. Mm-hmm. So it was everything kind of fell into place. The stars aligned, if you will.
I mean, it sucks that it happened right after 9/11, but it's a good thing that they aligned when they did.
Right.
Tell me about boot camp at that point in time, because it must have been unique knowing that the U.S. was pretty much heading into war.
Yeah.
And you guys knowing that you were headed that way.
Yeah, you think back on that time, and it's been 22 years. It'll be 22 years on the 10th of this month ago that I went. And I remember it how I remembered it then. It was so hard. It was so challenging. And it's just because up until that point in my life, that was probably the hardest thing I had done. Since then, I have done much harder things, but I still remember it as one of the harder things. I will say from what I've heard, it's much different than it is now. I still had the pleasure of going through a boot camp that was very quote unquote old school in their disciplinary tactics. And yeah, it sucked. It was I equate it to my college years. There is nothing else in my life that I will ever do that is comparable to living in a giant room with 30 other girls for 3 months and just getting the shit kicked out of us every day by 4 women who, if I saw right now, I would cower.
Even still.
Dude, these chicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Badasses.
I mean, and even if they weren't, even if it was all for show, it's still, they forever in my mind will be 4 of the wildest, badass examples of women that I could conjure in my mind. And I mean, they were all like 5 foot nothing. 120 pounds, just terrifying.
Just pure
bulldogs,
terror.
Just pure terrifying bulldogs of women. But yeah, it wasn't what I expected, but I don't know that I had any expectations. And it's exactly what you saw in movies. You're getting yelled at. You don't know your head from your ass. You don't know left from right. At that time, looking back on it, I know how what's the word I'm looking for? everything has a purpose. They do that. There's a schedule. Today is the day that they're going to toss your footlocker. Today's the day that you're going to get sent to the sand pit and stand there for an hour and get IT'd. Like, even knowing that now, I look back and I was like, man, she was cool. It was. You're never going to do anything like that again.
This is true.
And then you go to 2 other fucking academies and.
Oh, are we comparing them now?
I mean, we could. It's not. You can't compare 'em.
Yeah, you can't. It's impossible.
There's no comparison there.
So you made it through training, and where'd you head to? Where'd you head afterwards?
After you go to boot camp, you go to something called MCT, which I think just stands for Marine Corps Training. I don't.
That is shockingly simple. That is not as complicated as I expected the military to make it.
It's essentially 2 weeks of, if you're going into a field, which at that time women couldn't be grunts. It's like the 2 weeks of field training that you go to. So you do that for 2 weeks. It's awful. You're just camping for 2 weeks. It's whatever. And then I was flown out to Monterey, California, for 2 years, where I learned to speak Russian. That was my primary MOS. I was a Russian cryptologic linguist. Turns out we weren't at war with Russia, so that was a fairly useless skill.
But you learned Russision.
I did. I did learn Russian.
You can probably watch all the Instagram and like Telegram videos of everything going on right now in Ukraine and understand what they're saying.
I can understand it better than I can speak it. There's another member of our department who is a Russian linguist who I worked with.
Small world.
Small, tiny world.
Wow.
I know. And I rode with him on the engine at 11 not too long ago. And we were reading po-ruski. And I was like, oh, wow, man, my Russian sucks now. Because he still does it. So it's... Oh,
I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolute brainiac.
Yeah.
Love him to death.
Yeah, good guy. So yeah, I was like, yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't remember the word for cat, so let's move on. But yeah.
Isn't that like one of the first things you should learn? Cat. Come on.
Yeah.
Animals, pets.
I think it's shot. I don't remember. I'll look it up.
You just made that
I'll
up.
get back to it.
You could have said something completely different, but you said shat. You said the past tense of shit, and now I just know you're messing with me.
Well, dog is sobaka, so it's something, close. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Left there, went to Camp Lejeune, where they realized my skills were useless, so they had to teach me new skills, which is where I became a tactical signals intelligence operator. And that is what I did for the Marine Corps for the next 5 years. 6
Okay.
years. It's a cool job.
Sounds fancy. Sounds nerdy.
It's nerdy. It's like...
Okay, like what cool badass stories do you have from doing that? Because it's got the word tactical in it, so it's automatically 100% cool.
So essentially what our job was, we were a tactical unit. So when we weren't deployed, life was fairly boring. We were just training. But when forward deployed, we essentially would... How do I explain it without getting in any kind of trouble?
Dumb it down for our firefighter audience, because dumb it down for me.
So we would keep an eye on people and follow them around based on the signals they would emit.
Oh, right, because there's that difference between, what is it, like signals intelligence and human?
Human and SIGINT are two completely different things.
Right, like human is
human
your
intelligence
actions,
is you're
who you
speaking to
talk
people, is you have people that are getting information directly from
Right.
you. Signals intelligence is we're using the signals you emit from
your footprint.
Your digital footprint, creating a pattern of life, checking up on what you're doing, and then if you are doing things you shouldn't be doing, sending a QRF team in to knock on your door and
get you to knock it off.
Stop it.
Can you please stop doing that?
Can you please stop
I feel that back then it was probably a lot more exciting. Nowadays,
it was, man, and I was there in a very interesting transition. I was deployed in Ramadi for way too long. Ramadi, for any reference, which it's probably not going to help, is slightly southwest of Fallujah.
But it was a hot spot.
Oh yeah,
it was
that movie.
Big hot spot.
What's that movie with the American Sniper? That was my time. I was there for that.
I was an American Sniper.
I was in Ramadi when all of that happened. I mean, we didn't hear about it, but whatever, I was there. So yeah, it was a very big hotspot. And then we were there through that big push through Fallujah, the first televised battle ever, which is such a good idea, guys. Wait a second.
And look at how far we've come.
Mm-hmm.
Now all the drones, you can watch the suicide drones
Yeah.
fly into tanks and everything in real time.
Yeah. It was an interesting time to do things. And our transition there was, when we first got there, we had, I mean, as however it sounds, kind of free reign.
Mm-hmm.
And it was up to us to tell the QRF team or the QRF command or whoever, hey, that house, that guy, go get him. And they'd be like, okay.
Knock, knock. Right.
But once they realized that was probably not the most bestest way to do things, we then had to kind of reel it in and really present these very intricate, very researched target packages and span of events. And we had to be able to prove that, yes, it was actually you speaking on your phone. It was.
What's up, my fellow firefighters and dedicated listeners of the Keep the Promise podcast? I have an extremely exciting announcement that I could not wait to share with you, so I hope you're ready. Starting today, for a limited time only, I'm offering you an incredible opportunity to join our exclusive Patreon community with a 1-week free trial. That's right, an entire week to experience the amazing benefits, resources, and connections that await you inside of our firefighter family. But this offer is more than just a trial. It's an invitation to step into a world where support, growth, and inspiration thrive. It's a chance to embrace a community that understands your dedications, your struggles, and the profound impact that you strive to make every single day. Imagine a place where you're surrounded by like-minded individuals who share your passion for service, who understand the demands and joys of the fire service, and also who stand shoulder to shoulder with you as you keep the promise that you made to your community. It's not about the benefits that you'll receive either. It's about the connections that you're going to forge, the friendships that you're going to nurture, and the support that you'll find when the weight of the world feels heavy on your shoulders. Look, as firefighters, we're not just bound by a profession. We're united by a deeper purpose, a calling to protect, to save lives, and to make a difference. And together, we can achieve so much more. During this 1-week free trial, you'll have access to exclusive bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes insights, and a community that will rally around you, providing you encouragement, advice, and all the motivation that you need to become the best version of yourself, both on and off the job. So, my fellow firefighter, I invite you to take that leap, to join us in this extraordinary journey. Let us be the foundation that supports you, empowers you, and helps you overcome any obstacles that come your way. Head over to our Patreon page today at joinkeepthepromise.com. Again, joinkeepthepromise.com and claim your 1-week free trial. Do not miss out on this opportunity to experience the strength of our community, the wisdom of our guests, and most importantly, the inspiration that awaits you. Together, we will keep the promise we made to our community, to ourselves, and to each other. I'll see you on the other side, my friend.
So
It's wow, that's pretty high stakes.
Yeah, it was a good time though.
I feel that we always look at any sort of war or conflict, and the first thing that comes to mind is people with guns knocking down doors, shooting, and so forth.
War's not. I mean, it is, but
there was so much behind the scenes.
Much, yeah.
There
are
so
layers,
much intrigue, if you will.
Yeah, I always tell people that I really do believe, and everyone says that I had the coolest job in the military, and I got out and I did contracting for it for like 12 years after that. So that, I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was very interesting. But you know, you get burned out of everything eventually.
So you did, and then you went into contract work. And
Yep. Well, I went into contract work after. I really had no intention of being a career military person, seeing as I really had no intention of ever joining the Marine or the military in the first place. I got out and got into the contracting world and was able and given the opportunity to kind of run the gambit of things you could do within my job field. I did testing and evaluation of equipment. I did training. I did analysis. So, I worked for these companies that would go out to MARSOC and go out to SOCOM, and we would train groups on how to do network discovery and infiltration and all the way down to target acquisition. Every step of that process. And then I worked doing creating and helping develop the tools that we use to do all of those things. And then once I did that for a while, because I was traveling a ton, I had no roots. I think I was out away from my home at the time for at least 6 months out of the year. And then I came up here and worked for NSA, which is where your soul goes to die. If you like doing anything besides
They're
sitting.
listening, okay? Don't get a drone sent to my place.
They know my feelings, ladies and gentlemen. Unless you really enjoy sitting in front of a computer in a building with no walls or windows, or no walls. What a stupid statement. No windows.
Yeah, you're out in the open. That's what's up.
Right. Yeah, it was. Oh God. Kicked the microphone.
I was going to say, for somebody so well-versed in electronics and everything, this microphone is whooping your ass.
It's just very much close to my face.
As it's supposed to be.
But yeah, so I left there very shortly after the Edward Snowden incident.
Okay.
He and I worked on the same contract, the same country.
What?
Yeah. So when he turned over all of the information that he turned over, there were lists that went out to every department of the names of people that were given.
Oh,
and
no.
Mine was on that. My SID was on that list. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to head.
Yeah, I'm out of
good.
here.
At that time, I was just looking for a reason. I unfortunately have a very bad habit of when I have lost interest in doing something, I become a very bad employee. So I was burnt out. I was coming to work not even the bare minimum. I just didn't want to be there anymore. And it was very obvious. So when that happened, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm good. I'm out.
Stars aligned again.
Right. And then trying to figure out what I was going to be when I grew up again.
I sense a pattern.
I was sitting on the couch and I heard an ambulance drive by on Little Patuxent Parkway. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And that's...
You said, I want to ride an ambulance.
I went...
I'm about to just stop this podcast right now. Be like, we're done. Goodbye. And I'm going to get you a transfer to 9 because we got plenty of ambulances to go around.
I've been there. It's... Yeah. No, I mean, I heard the sirens and I was like, I'm going to do that when I grow up.
Literally, that was it. You just heard a siren. You said, I'm going to go become a firefighter.
This is how I make decisions. Yeah.
I'm terrified of what decision you're going to make sitting on this couch right now.
Yeah. I got up the next day and went to Howard and enlisted. What's the word when you go to school? Enrolled. Enrolled.
Totally different.
But is it?
I mean, there were people in schools back during Vietnam who were protesting the draft and enlistment. Totally kind of different. I mean, I love the semantics. It's kind of funny.
That's semantics, TJ. But yeah, got my EMT. Had no idea. I just thought I could show up to a firehouse and be like, hey, I work here now. What's up? I had no idea of the process.
I feel that some of the people we work with are kind of like that. And you're like, how did you get here?
Yeah. I applied to Howard in 2016. I did not get in.
Okay.
I didn't have any, I know the exact moment I didn't get hired to.
Oh, yeah? Are you comfortable sharing it?
Oh, yeah. It's hilarious to me. So I'm going in blind. Clearly, because I heard a siren and I was like, so I got to the interview. I did the CPAT, got to the interview. And that first question that they just want to see how vested you are in the county. They were like, so what do you know about Howard County? I said, nothing. Next question. Like, nobody told.
Oh my God. I think I was doing interviews at that point in time. I would have remembered. There was a couple guys that I remember, like Donnie from 10C came up to me. He's like, "Hey, you and Fahili hired me." I'm like, "Damn it!"
They did it differently than this process that I went through, because there was like a panel.
Yeah.
Whereas this time I just had 2 people.
Yeah, they used to like hire us on overtime.
And you'd sit there and it was very daunting.
And I remember reading the questions and saying to myself, "Thank God nobody asked me these questions when I came through, because I would have." I came in blind too. If they had asked me, "Tell me about Howard County," I'd be like, I don't know anything. I saw it on a Facebook ad. So
this time I knew all the deciduous trees and the cubic feet of water in the county. Like, I'm good now.
Yeah.
We researched.
We're Gucci.
Yep. So you all didn't want me, so I went to Baltimore County. I'll take it. I'm just kidding.
I might have to edit that part out.
Yeah.
And you got hired what, in 17, 18?
18. 18. 0. I had no experience, no frame of reference, other than I've been through a boot camp before. This should be fine.
So how was the academy, having been through boot camp? I think that's an easy question.
It's not the same. I will say what was different for me was I had a 3-month-old baby thugh that.
Oh,
academy.
That changes everything.
It changed everything. Yeah, I ran their CPAT 6 weeks postpartum. Yeah.
All right, we need to delve deeper into that later on, and the physical fitness side of things.
So that created its own challenge. But it being used to, even as watered down as it a paramilitary academy can be, just knowing my role, like I'm gonna yes ma'am, no ma'am, and do all that stuff just makes it easier. It's a very, people are always like, how do you do it? It's so easy to just do what you're told. It's so easy to do.
It takes no brain power.
It takes zero thought. All of the people that had the most problems just couldn't. It's the military, the fire service, all of those things. If you just buy in, like if you just buy into the program, you're good. It's fine. It's easy. But that's hard for people to do in this day and age of individualism, and I'm the most important person in my life, and what I say and think matters. Like, we're not doing that today. Like, just sit down, stand up, yes ma'am, no ma'am, and show up in the right clothes, and you're fine.
And in a sense, enjoy that ride, because it's literally
the easiest. It's the easiest time. You don't have to do anything. Like, it seems like a lot, but somebody else is making your schedule. God, I would love that. I would love that in my day-to-day life, if I could just be a toddler and just tell me. And which is honestly one of the things I like so much about being on probation. Mm-hmm. Y'all just tell me where to sit. Mm-hmm. I'm good. You tell me where you want me to go. I got it. I don't have to think about anything. Cool. Love it. I keep hitting this with my head.
It's fine. It's fine. You got to enjoy that probation, because pretty soon, in the blink of an eye,
I know,
there's going to be people 5, 6, 7, 8 classes younger than you looking at you, be like, "Hey, what do I do?" And you'll be like, "I would like an adult."
Yeah, an adultier adult.
Yeah,
I had that moment. Not here yet, because I am still on probation, which makes this awfully even more uncomfortable. But I had that moment in Baltimore County, going into a fire with someone in a class, and she was like, "I'm following you." I was like, "You're doing what now?" Okay, well, here goes nothing. I was like, "I'm not. I've been doing this for 20 seconds. Why are you following me?" But it all works out. It's one of those things. It's like, nobody knows what they're doing, for the most part.
There's going to be a couple people listening to this who get their panties in a bunch over it, but it's true. We're all, in a sense, just wing it, and being humble enough to realize that every single day that we show up, A, we get to learn something, and B, we're definitely going to make a mistake.
Sure.
Kind of keeps those expectations.
Sure.
I don't want to say low, but it keeps them manageable. Yeah,
I'm a big, big proponent of, you can't learn anything without you learn the best and the most cemented lessons you learn from the mistakes you've made, right? I can distinctly remember the first call I ever went on. Again, zero experience. The first call I ever went on was a box. And it's always interesting the things that they don't teach you and stuff like that. So I had never been inside a fire engine before. When I came out of the academy in Baltimore County, we never actually sat inside a fire engine. I had no experience. Showed up. I had 2 left-handed gloves. I was a mess. I walked in the door and the warbles went off. So I was like, what are we doing? I had my tie on. Like, what? Get on the engine that I've never been inside before. I have 2 left-handed gloves. I forgot my face piece, and it was an old LaFrance, which has the release, the SCBA release under the seat. Didn't know about that. So I'm in the back of the engine trying to get out.
Trying to fight the VA
bracket. Didn't know how to get out. Didn't know how to open the door. It was a time to be alive.
That's awesome.
So.
Talk about getting thrown to the wolves.
Right. Yeah. It's, you know what? I've never forgotten my face piece again, though.
I mean, I thought you were going to tell me you got hung up on the seatbelt, because that is one of the
I feel
most...
like this was worse, though.
I don't know.
It just looked ridiculous.
One of, like, my boy George, one of his first boxes that we ran when he was young, and back then we used to run with 3 on the engine of 10. So it was cool because we had 4 because he didn't count towards staffing.
Yeah.
And I remember it was a box of Monarch Mills, and I got out of the engine. I was coming around the other side to check on him, and I just hear him meekly going, "Teej." And I look over, and I don't know how he did that, but he like wrapped 3, pulled 2 with the seatbelt on his BA, and he's just dangling all 4 extremities mid-air, kind of like trying to swim his way back onto the engine. I'm like, oh my Lord. Let's get you back on and unbuckle before anybody sees this, because they think we're a bunch of goons.
Oh, good times.
All right, so you spent some time in Baltimore County. Where'd you get assigned to?
Hood Lawn, Station 3.
Station 3.
Mm-hmm.
Good place to be?
I loved it.
I think I took a class up there. Yeah, what's 2?
Pikesville.
Yeah, that was definitely a Woodlawn. There was some like side class.
Yeah, there's a classroom on the other side of the bay.
It's a horrible Fire Officer 1 class where you have to do the scenarios like you're supposed to be.
When was that?
So it was after Woodscape, so it must have been...
I remember that class.
Like 2018.
I remember that class going on.
Late 2018 or something?
Yeah.
It was miserable. Like, you guys had some retired chief that I didn't like him, so I snapped a picture and I sent it to Dave Angelo, who had very candid things to say about him. And when somebody
he has very candid things to say about a lot of people.
But like when Dave says somebody's character is not up to par, then I believe him.
Yeah.
And it became really evident because when we had to do one of the scenarios where you talk on the radio and you're managing an incident, which makes no sense for an Officer 1 class or a company officer. Like, you're acting like a full-blown incident commander. This dude just kept throwing more and more outrageous things. Like, hey, your LDH is over a train track and there's a train coming full of anhydrous ammonia.
Oh.
And passengers. I'm like, I don't think that's
They
legal.
don't think those things would be on the same train.
It's like, and there's an aircraft above you declaring an emergency. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do, bro? Like, keep throwing things at me. What are we doing? Right, so I'm sorry, we got distracted.
No, you're good.
That's my vent session. That guy was...
I
mean, I made it through a class and I did nothing with it because I hate my free classes. So Woodlawn.
Yeah, I had a great shift. A great group of people. Great group of people. It's different there, for sure. And when I say different, I mean that department felt a lot different than Howard, but you know, I feel like it was a good place to cut your teeth, going from 0 experience to getting thrown to Woodlawn. It was a good time. You know, you certainly had to learn quickly. They didn't. How do I say it?
I mean, if you don't use names, you can say whatever you want.
It's a very, you know, one of the first questions people usually ask me when they find out prior experience, which I don't even like saying, because I don't think, 4 or 5 years is all that much experience. But they're like, "What do you like it here? What's different?" I'm like, "It feels different. it was a tough crowd out there. It's a tough crowd. Very, very good old boys club. I didn't go in with, coming into this department, having already been through a 2-year probationary period. Like, I kind of knew what I was doing, but showing up to that probation, I didn't know what I was doing. I come from a culture in the military where you don't speak unless you're spoken to. Nobody ever said hey, go in and introduce yourself to everyone. So I didn't do that.
Oh.
Nobody told me to do that.
Yeah.
So that translated, I'm sure, into like, oh, that's Jack.
Yeah, she's a bitch.
Biatch. But that's just how again, in the military, to me, and everyone's military experience is different, but we were a very, you don't talk to people unless they talk to you, especially people in charge of you. So I don't know. It was tough to navigate. It was a tough area with a tough crowd to get acclimated to, and nobody really spoke to me for a year on a fire ground.
What?
Which was, and I later asked them about it, and they were like, "Yeah, we just had to make sure you were going to stick around." I was like, "That's safe, guys. Cool, thanks."
That is.
But not my shift. My shift was great.
Right.
My medic is still one of my favorite people around. So I love her. And I had a great lieutenant, great captain, great specialist, all of it. Great. Oh my God, my driver, forget it. Legend. But it was a good time out there.
That leads me to...
Why did you leave?
Okay. Hey everyone, it's TJ here from Keep the Promise. As you know, this podcast is all about helping firefighters become more resilient and well-rounded so that they can be a force for good within their fire department and their community. But today I want to talk to you about something that's just as important, and that is supporting firefighters who are going through tough times. When one of our fellow firefighters is off work because they have to go to the Center for Excellence, they have to go to rehab, they have mental health issues, or they have other health issues, it really takes away their support system, and it wreaks havoc on their finances and their family's finances. And many times, these brothers and sisters are left to struggle alone, away from their support system and the people who love them, without the resources they need to recover. That's why I'm setting a bold new goal. And that is to reach 150 total patrons on Patreon so that we can start a fund to help firefighters and their families during these challenging times. And I need your help to make it happen. With your support on Patreon, we'll be able to provide financial assistance to firefighter families who are battling things like addiction, depression, and cancer. We're going to help alleviate the financial strain that can come with being away from the fire department so that our brothers and sisters can focus on healing and recovering. Now, reaching 150 total patrons is a big goal, but I believe that we can do it together. And when we do, we'll be able to make a real difference in the lives of those who serve and protect alongside us. So, if you're not already a patron, I invite you to join us today. Head over to joinkeepthepromise.com and sign up today. Again, that is joinkeepthepromise.com. And if you already are a patron, thank you so much for your support. You'll be receiving some exclusive rewards and perks as a way of saying thanks. Together, let's show our fellow firefighters that we've got their back just like they always have ours. Thank you for listening. Let's get started with the episode.